In California, a quiet collapse is underway. While drivers brace for higher gas prices, thousands of small gas stations are staring at extinction, caught between refinery shutdowns, rigid regulations, and a fuel system now on the brink of failure. In Bakersfield, one gas station owner invested his entire retirement, $4,000, into a Shell franchise 5 years ago. Today, 12 employees depend on him for their livelihoods. But his future, like many others across California, is suddenly in jeopardy. That reality hit hard when Phillips 66 announced it would shut down its Wilmington refinery by the end of 2025. That single closure removes 8% of California's gasoline production, or 139,000 barrels per day, from an already fragile system. The situation worsened when his fuel supplier warned that deliveries could be delayed by up to 3 weeks starting in January. For independent stations operating on razor-thin margins, 3 weeks without fuel is not a delay. It is a death sentence. And Phillips 66 is not alone. Valero plans to shut down its Benicia refinery in April 2026, eliminating another 145,000 barrels per day. In just 4 months, California will lose nearly 20% of its refining capacity. To put that into perspective, in 1983, California had 40 refineries. After these closures, only 11 will remain. Each shutdown makes the fuel supply more volatile, more expensive, and more vulnerable to disruption. Industry groups are sounding alarms. The California Fuels and Convenience Alliance issued an emergency warning stating that independent station owners, many of them family-run businesses, are facing closure due to refinery shutdowns compounded by infrastructure mandates and regulatory delays. These owners typically invest between $4,000 and $1 million into their stations. Unlike corporate chains, they cannot survive weeks without product, and supply chain risks are escalating. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, replacement fuel will increasingly need to be imported from Asia, a process that takes at least 3 weeks under ideal conditions. Any refinery outage, heat wave, shipping delay, or port disruption could leave stations completely dry. Energy analysts warn that prices could rise 50 cents to $1 almost immediately, with some projections placing gas at $8 per gallon by late 2026. This crisis does not stop at California's borders. California supplies 33% of Arizona's gasoline and 88% of Nevada's. Cities like Reno are entirely dependent on California refineries. As supply tightens, gas station owners in Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Reno face the same bankruptcy risks. At the same time, a new regulatory deadline looms. Beginning January 1, 2026, California gas stations must replace single-walled underground storage tanks. The cost often reaches hundreds of thousands of dollars per site. The problem? Permits can take up to 2 years to approve, and state loan programs take another 2 years to process. Owners are being forced to spend massive sums, while fuel supply shrinks and demand collapses under rising prices. Gas stations typically earn just 3 to 5 cents per gallon. If prices hit $8, volume drops, but fixed costs remain. Payroll, rent, insurance, and maintenance do not disappear. Selling less fuel at the same overhead leads directly to bankruptcy. The human impact is severe. Phillips 66 employs 900 workers in Wilmington. Valero employs 400 in Benicia. Each gas station employs 8 to 12 workers, and California has over 1,000 stations. Even limited closures could mean tens of thousands of lost jobs, jobs that cannot be done remotely. Cities also suffer. When Valero closes in Benicia, the city loses $10 million annually, roughly 10% of its general fund, forcing immediate service cuts. Every closure reduces sales tax, property tax, permit fees, and local revenue statewide. The market is already highly concentrated. According to the California Energy Commission, just 5 companies control 98% of California's refining capacity. Removing 20% of supply in such a concentrated market creates near-monopoly conditions, leaving station owners with no leverage and no alternatives. Rural communities are especially vulnerable. When a rural gas station closes, residents may need to drive 50 miles just to refuel, disrupting daily life, raising costs, and accelerating economic decline. Compounding the issue is California's requirement for a specialized fuel blend known as carb gasoline. Only a handful of refineries in India and South Korea can produce it, exposing the state to foreign supply chains, Pacific weather, and port congestion. Ironically, refinery operators cited new minimum inventory rules as a reason for shutting down. After closure announcements, regulators attempted to ease those same rules, but by then, the decisions were irreversible. Shortages are already emerging. Reports show Phillips 66 began scaling down operations months ahead of schedule. In San Diego, prices jumped 14 cents in just 2 weeks, driven by panic buying among distributors. Emergency solutions sound simple, but fail in reality. Switching to non-compliant fuel would require new tanks, pumps, permits, and training, costing up to $5,000 per station. Owners on the brink of collapse cannot finance emergency infrastructure for fuel that may never arrive. The math is unforgiving. Gas demand fell just 1.12% last year, while refining capacity is dropping 20%. Economics dictates that prices must rise until demand collapses. By late 2025, the convergence of refinery closures, mandatory tank replacements, and import delays could trigger widespread station failures. A 3-week supply gap leaves pumps empty. At $8 per gallon, demand evaporates. What began as isolated refinery decisions is now a multi-state economic crisis, one that threatens small businesses, workers, municipalities, and consumers alike.